Alrighty, so it's that time of the year again where MLS have just announced the full schedule of the regular season. Now, normally I would just kind of quickly mention in the news of the week episode and I basically will move on to the next topic. But this year, I'm actually going to go in depth in terms of looking at the regular season schedule because there's definitely things that have changed in terms of the regular season schedule, and we probably know why that is the case because this is the first of 10 years that MLS will be part of the Apple TV deal, and that we mentioned before that every match will be on Apple TV and part of the MLS season pass, which will be introduced on February 1st. Now, they already mentioned the pricing for the MLS season pass before, and I believe you can purchase that as soon as MLS season pass is introduced on February 1st. And also keep in mind, for those that are season ticket holder of your respective team, you actually get the MLS season pass for free. So yeah, that obviously is a big part in terms of this season, and it will continue to be a big talking point throughout the season because I think this is something that MLS is taking a big risk in terms of the TV deal. This is really something we have never seen before in other leagues where they decided to rely on a streaming service to fully broadcast all of the game, and that it's going to be interesting to see whether or not if it's going to be a success or failure, not just this season but also in the future. But also with the way that this Apple TV deal has been announced, and as we have got more news about this Apple TV deal, and I've already done a video talking about this, is that most of these games will be played on Wednesday and Saturday, and there will be some national TV game that is happening on Sunday, although the way that they say it's not really national television, it's more like kind of linear kind of TV games where Fox, of course, will get the footage from Apple TV and they'll broadcast it in their game. But yeah, this basically means that Apple TV mentioned the fact that there's going to be game that will be playing on Wednesday and Saturday, which means that pretty much now all the games will be taking place in those games, and we might get like one or two games that's going to be happening on Sunday. And then that also kind of moves into the next topic, is that most teams will be playing their match at 7:30 p.m. Local time. Now, obviously, I know coming into this season, and really for the past couple of seasons, one of the big criticism I think a lot of fans have given to MLS is that the kickoff time is just kind of all over for the place. I mean, it's just there's just no predictability, and especially on those national televised games where there's sometimes where it starts like in the morning, well, at least for me, but in the early afternoon for the East Coast people, and some games go very late into the night, and that people were kind of frustrated with the fact that they just don't know when exactly the game will start because of the fact that there's no predictability in the schedule. Well, as we mentioned before in the information about Apple TV coming into MLS, that was one of the things that they tried to fix, which it seems like now they decided to kind of copy the same model as the NFL is doing, where they're going to have a kickoff time at a specific time. And speaking of copying the NFL, they're going to have a whip around show. So you know how in the NFL there's kind of that NFL red zone kind of thing where they basically look at or jump into some key action that happened in some of these games. That's what the whip around show is going to be all about, and it's going to be starting at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 a.m. Or to 12:30 a.m. Eastern time, which is around the time when the last West Coast game is going to finish. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it's going to go. I mean, honestly, for me, I'm not sure if I want to watch the whip around show, because as a guy that wants to like watch as much soccer as possible, I mean, I guess the whip around show would be nice to watch, but I definitely also want to try to catch as many games as possible, and also watching the highlights. So I don't know if the whip around show can really kind of help me in terms of taking the notes. And speaking of notes and watching game stuff, this obviously does create a much bigger of a challenge, because I mentioned before how there's definitely some weeks where there's just a ton of games that is on at the same time, and I just don't have time to like watch every one of them. Now it just gets even more difficult because of the way that all these games are taking place at 7:30. And while they're not going to be as extreme as we seen before, it is going to be at a point where there's going to be a lot of overlap, and that again, I won't be surprised that I would be some of the games that I, of course, will will do in the review is just gonna be a quick review. I mean, you can probably tell if you watch this channel long enough. When I do the review, you can pretty much tell which game I keep an eye the most and which one I probably didn't keep an eye and just relied on the highlights. And also, speaking of the review, because of the fact that most of the games are going to be taking place on Wednesday and Saturday, I'm going to have to change how I'm going to do the review. I think I'm going to have to split it into a two-part review now because, again, I don't think I can just do one part on Saturday, especially if there's going to be like 14 games that's going to be happening on Saturday. There's no way I'm going to do a 14 game review. I'm probably going to have to split it into two parts, and that's the way that I'm going to go because, like I said, there's not going to be a lot of games that's going to be happening on Sunday as we've seen before. And I also will say that, one of the things that I've heard people have said, the fact that, the 7:30 start, yes, MLS wants to kind of have a time frame where they can have a predictability where every fan will know exactly what time their team is going to be playing. But also I have heard some feedback or saying that there are some criticism in terms of that time frame, and also with the way that there's not a lot of day games that we're going to see. In fact, last season I think one of the thing that we see in the beginning of the season is that there wasn't really a lot of night games. This season is the complete opposite. We do not have a lot of day games, and that could become a problem, especially in the early part of the season where, the reason why in the early part of the season there's a lot of day games is because, when you look at some of those games taking place in the East Coast, it is very cold to play a night game. So yeah, add to the fact that it's going to be cold, and that, I wonder will that also affect attendance because, attendance wise, I know probably the attendance might be going down again, and especially the way that, we're still in a financial hardship, and not to mention the fact that when the weather does get cold, it doesn't matter if it's a Wednesday or Saturday game, people are not gonna show up to the stadium to watch their team play. And I don't blame them because, when you're in a financial hardship, and also it's like 20 degrees outside, it's gonna be hard to trying to bear that. So yeah, that's gonna be kind of interesting, and that I will definitely be watching the attendance wise, especially on those East Coast games because it's taking place at night. Because let's be honest, I think that may be something that Apple TV might be looking at. I mean, I think they might be looking at the ratings to see how it does, but again, I can understand why there's people that have said that there's a lack of day game could be a problem because, again, the weather is going to be an issue, especially with those East Coast game in the early months. Like, as we get into the summer month, it's not going to be as big of an issue because we always see night games as the summer month goes. But those games that's taking place in early February or early March and late February, that is going to be a bit of an issue. And it's also not a good look, the fact that you might have a game where the stadium could be half empty just because it's too cold, and just not a good product to look on TV. Now, speaking of TV, now we're going to talk about Fox Sports. So we mentioned the fact that Fox Sports did sign a linear TV deal, and that they're actually the only national televised network that is going to be covering MLS after ESPN decided to back out of the deal. So now Fox Sports will be airing 34 games. 15 of them is going to be on Fox, and 19 of them is going to be on FS1. I like the fact that they have about half of those games that's going to be taking place in Fox because, we talk about FS1 and not everybody, of course, has it. And we know that the ratings always tends to be better when it's on the big Fox compared to FS1. So I like the fact that they have more games that is going to be taking place at Fox, and that, again, most of these games I think there is going to be taking place on Sunday because, that's kind of the slot for these national televised kind of game. Now, the season, of course, for those that don't know, it will be starting on February 25th. I mean, this was something that is not officially announced by MLS, but I think everybody knew because there was so much leak talk about the season is going to be starting during February 25th, going all the way back to when it was first announced that LA Galaxy would be playing LAFC at the Rose Bowl for the El Tráfico, and that there was also speculation that actually would be the first match that kick off the season, because what a way for Apple TV to basically introduce their audience of probably what the medias are saying the best rivalry in MLS right now. But it turns out that actually is not the case. The first match will actually be between Nashville SC and NYCFC. That starts at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time to kick off the new era in terms of MLS, in terms of broadcasting rights and stuff like that. And I feel like that's kind of, is nothing against this match between Nashville and NYCFC, but let's be honest, I feel like this is a bit of a missed opportunity for Apple TV. Like, a great way for them to really kind of draw in audience and kind of buy into their product is, why not just kind of put on what is always they consider the most entertaining game to watch throughout the regular season, and a game that, I can understand now why the media kind of hype El Tráfico a lot, because El Tráfico brings some of the craziest soccer we've seen in the league history. So why not introduce that instead of showing Nashville versus NYCFC? I mean, don't get me wrong, this game could definitely be an entertaining game, but let's be honest, I'm pretty sure everybody is looking forward to El Tráfico rather than this one. And that, again, I feel like it's a big missed opportunity for Apple TV, where they could have easily had that game taking place. Probably just switch the time zone, because I think the El Tráfico game is taking place at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. They could have just do a reverse like that, and I think that should be fine. So yeah, again, I feel like for the first match they kind of missed the opportunity of potentially putting El Tráfico being there. Now, St. Louis. So we talked about St. Louis coming into the league, and that, their first ever home game is actually going to be happening on match day 2. Keep in mind, St. Louis is one of the few expansion teams that is able to play their first true home game at their home stadium. Well, I say few. Charlotte was able to do it last season too, and they also play their first true home game on match day number 2, and that's going to be the same case for St. Louis here. And speaking of Charlotte, going to be playing. St. Louis is going to be playing against Charlotte in match day 2 for their first ever home game, and I think that's going to be a marquee matchup, because you have the last 2 expansion team MLS facing against each other, and that should be definitely a party in St. Louis. And not to mention, that game is also going to be national televised and will be featuring on FS1. Now, Rivalry Week. So, Rivalry Week will be featuring now on May 13th to the 20th, so a little bit earlier than usual. But keep in mind, I think MLS mentioned there's actually only going to be one Heineken Rivalry Week instead of 2 that we saw last season. I'm kind of disappointed that is the case, because I feel like they could add another one maybe in August. And also, not to mention, it's kind of a little bit early for them to kind of have it during May. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see that, and that we're going to see all the good rivalries that's going to be happening between that time frame. And then, as I mentioned before with the whole League Cup video, MLS will take a pause for League Cup between July 15th and August 29th. And again, there are definitely some pros and cons in terms of taking that long break. The pro, of course, is the fact that, there could be some teams that maybe get eliminated early in the League Cup, and they get a relatively long break to kind of pause that and kind of just don't have to worry about fixture congestion. But the con of course, that is that a lot of those teams are going to be relatively rusty when MLS action is going to do. And I wonder, I think that could play a very big factor as we head in the home stretch. And speaking of fixture congestion, that's also going to be an issue with the League Cup tournament, of the way that they kind of go with a World Cup style tournament. And that we already seen before, where some of these MLS teams, when they play in CCL and also MLS, fixture congestion could be a problem. So I wonder now with the way that, now teams have to play in this League Cup and also have to play 34 games in MLS, and the fact that, the MLS roster rule still hasn't really changed because of even though we're getting more games than usual. Yeah, I think that's something that is going to be interesting to see, and I think that is also a reason why, we could definitely be hearing more about MLS potentially ratifying the roster rule, because let's be honest, I think with the way that, now that they have League Cup putting in place throughout the season, it's just getting to a point where I just don't think some of these teams can play like 40 games or stuff like that, and the bodies can handle it. And this is where it can really test the team depth. I mean, I feel like this season, and I usually don't say this, but I think this could be a season that could be determined not only by quality, but also by endurance and who can stay healthiest, because with the way that this is gonna be a season where pretty much every team is gonna be playing some of the most amount of games that they've ever played in a season. That is gonna be something that could be interesting to see. And again, with this whole League Cup thing, again, I don't know if this is going to be something. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be something that is going to be a regular occurrence, and that, again, I guess maybe we'll get used to with the way that the league, of course, have took a bit of a break, even though this is something that we've never seen it before. I mean, the only time we've seen it is when they take a World Cup break, or even a Gold Cup break, and even then it was only like 3 weeks, not like a whole month, as we've seen in this situation. And then we look at Decision Day 2023, which will be on October 21st. Now, the playoffs and MLS Cup date has not been announced, and I think this is also a first, because normally we know exactly when MLS Cup is going to be taking place, but they have not announced it yet. And what's also interesting with the way that Decision Day 2023 is going to be happening on October 21st is the fact that Decision Day is literally gonna be in a day where it's right after the October international break. And again, I mean, when you look at the timing of the scheduling, I don't like the fact that they decided to put Decision Day right after the October international break, and then literally the second to last match is going to be like there's going to be like a 2-week break for most of these teams. And again, the reason why that is the case is that that could, some of these teams could lose the momentum that they can gain heading into Decision Day. And not to mention, doing this October international break, in case if some teams are going to suffer some back-breaking injury during international break, which we have seen it before, oh boy, that's going to be a big factor heading into this Decision Day 2. So yeah, again, I just think the timing is very awkward with the way how they put Decision Day right after the October international break, and we have like a 2-week break in between. I mean, I guess maybe in some way MLS is trying to just explain that to say that it kind of built some excitement for Decision Day, but let's be honest, we don't need like a week break and kind of squeeze between the international break before we have the Decision Day that's going to be happening on October 21st. And also, not to mention, as we talk about the playoffs and MLS Cup, again, I feel like the November international break is going to be a factor again, because with the way that the season and on October 21st, I mean, I just don't think there's any way under this playoff format they can finish the season or play MLS Cup before the November international break is going to happen. And that's going to also create a bit of a headache where, what are they going to do? Like, are they going to have a situation where the quarterfinal and the semifinal is going to be like between the international break, and how that's gonna definitely not gonna make teams happy, especially in previous season. We have seen this issue before, where maybe one team had to wait like 20 odd days before their first game, because the first round and the second round are literally separated by 2 weeks because of the international break. So yeah, again, that's going to be something that I think MLS is going to have to figure out, and whatever they try to figure out, I don't think it's going to be perfect, and that's kind of one of the issue. And again, that's also, I think, the reason why the season kind of ends a little bit later has to do with the whole League Cup situation, which is, again, why this whole League Cup thing, I know MLS is trying their best to really kind of buy into this, and I guess they want to create that relationship between Liga MX, to trying to have these kind of competitive games between MLS and Liga MX kind of team. But I just think that the big criticism with that is that we've already have seen that in CCL play, and also, not to mention, it just really creates problems in terms of the schedule. That, again, I think in the future maybe they'll figure a better way to do it, especially next season. I think they'll definitely figure out a way to do it, because I think the way that they set up the schedule in minds of the League Cup, it really kind of screw up in terms of some of these days. And as I mentioned, with Decision Day just being kind of right after the October International Day, and there's like a 2-week gap because of that, even though they shouldn't be. And then, of course, the playoffs could be separated by that international break again in November because of it. Now, looking at now each teams and how the format is going to be. So it's obviously going to be an unbalanced schedule once again. I mean, ever since the team has now got to 29 teams, the next year or in a couple of years or so, we could see the 30th team coming into MLS. The unbalanced schedule is going to continue, and this season in the Eastern Conference is pretty simple. Each of the Eastern Conference team will play their intra conference match twice and play their teams that is based in the Eastern Conference twice with one home game and one away game, and they also will now be down to just 6 Western Conference teams that they play once, because we added another team, so that means there's going to be two less games that the Eastern Conference team will be playing against a Western Conference team, and that's a shame, because I do enjoy those East versus West kind of matchup, and I feel like that maybe is kind of started to go away. And when you look at the Western Conference, it gets even more tricky, because in the Western Conference, because of how it's a little bit uneven, they're gonna be it's gonna be the same thing where each Western Conference team is gonna be playing against each Western Conference team at least twice, but there's also a situation where they can play a 1 or 2 opponent once, and that they will be playing, some teams could be playing 6 or 7 Eastern Conference team once. So there could be a situation where you see some Western Conference team might be facing against a team 3 times a year, just like what we used to see, and most of that has to do with the rivalry kind of matchup. So yeah, overall that's kind of just the in-depth breakdown in terms of the regular season. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video, and what other kind of in-depth analysis that I missed in terms of how the regular season is going to go. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.